the first ever female British High Commissioner to Kenya, Jane Marriott, and as she completes her tenure, so many of us are so interested to know what she's been up to. However, if you watched the show last week, you may have had a sneak peek of what she's been up to. And today on the show, we focus specifically on the visa as we take a tour around her garden. Hello and welcome to Traktion. My name is Fasil Telewa. How has it been for you juggling, work and your personal life so that it's not just too much work?
Yeah.
Or, you're feeling like overwhelmed?
Yeah.
Because it's quite busy. How have you ensured balance throughout? Because you're always on the go. You have meetings. You have somebody telling you this is how your diary looks like.
Yeah.
It's not like some of us.
Yeah.
How has it been for you?
So it can be quite difficult to get that work-life balance, and it's one of the things in my next job I want to do even more work at, because I think I probably am a bit too much on the work side and could do a bit more on the personal side. But I do make sure, weekends I pretty much take off completely, which I know a lot of kind of CEOs and people don't. So I think by being organised and structured with my time, and my team will tell you that I'm a planner. I love planning things so I can fit as much in as possible.
How far do you plan? Are you a short-term? Are you a long-term one?
So I'll make sure there's sort of some long-term plans in there, whether that's my personal life, I'd really like to go to these 4 places this year, or in my work life, when are we going to launch this project, when are we going to do that? So I'll put the longer-term dates in there, and then probably sort of 2 weeks out in terms of the specifics of the rolling diary.
Have you been to all the beautiful parts of Kenya?
No, because every part of Kenya is beautiful and I haven't yet been everywhere. But I have to confess, for a particular fondness for the Masai Mara, of course, but also Amboseli. But I think my favourite place in the world is Lamu Island, Shella and Lamu.
And I can see something about Lamu.
Yes, I've got lucky enough to have a look.
Did you pick these while you were there?
It was actually a present. So, it's one of the nice things about being a High Commissioner is people will give you presents and gifts.
What happens when you don't like them? You don't have to show though.
Well, you have to declare everything. So there are very strict rules about what you can accept. If it's over a certain amount of money, then you can either give it to a sort of central authority or pay the difference and keep it. So, and everything has to be registered very carefully, so it can't be seen as bribery or anything like that. So some of them I keep and some of them I give away. But yes, with everything, actually, most people have good taste, so most of the gifts I'm delighted to have.
Most people have good taste. You talk about the good things, which are gifts. What are the worst things about being an ambassador for you?
I think probably that inability to be yourself sometimes. So when I'm out in, as you say, when you're out in public and you must get recognised as well, you must have this a bit where you just want a quiet dinner and somebody comes up to you going, "Hi Commissioner, I'm terribly sorry to disturb you, but I'm trying to get a visa for my friend's son."
No!
Yes! Yes!
What? How do you influence a visa?
And you can't, of course. 10 years ago, ambassadors, high commissioners could kind of, call up their visa person and say, "Oh, can you, give this person a visa?" But now it's a very sort of arduous but transparent process.
It's independent.
The decisions are made in Pretoria, as you say, by independent people, and the most that I can do is say, "Look, this is a really good contact, or it's a government official. Can you hurry the process along a bit?" Because sometimes our visas can take a bit longer than people would like.
But I heard they moved it from Pretoria. They're now doing it from Nairobi.
So we're now printing in Nairobi, which is fantastic. So decisions are still made in Pretoria.
Oh, I see.
But the passports stay in Nairobi. The vignettes are printed out in Nairobi, and it's meant that we can do the speedy priority ones much more quickly than we could before.
Is there a way you can ensure that everything is done from Nairobi?
Do you know, I would love that, but it's been about cost saving. But actually the UK is moving to an electronic visa system over the next couple of years, so decisions will be made centrally, not in Pretoria anymore, and hopefully it will be a much easier, slicker system, and you can sort of do it from your mobile phone is the hope. We're testing it at the moment.
I think we can have a look at the garden.
Yeah, let's go and have a look.
Thank you.
After you.
Thank you.
Come on, Nanny, let's go to the garden. Come on. So Ernie's quite good because she's always trying to make me go for a walk. She gets very bored if I just sit at my desk all the time.
Yeah. And you know, people have been used to singing the Queen, the Queen.
Yeah.
Do you have a problem, you know,
so
switching to the King now?
Even at the coronation, I managed to do the God Save Our King bits. But
people
then
are still like, God Save.
I went, send her victorious. And I was like, no, him, send him victorious. Thinking, gosh, I hope no one heard that.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. No, usually it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
Before people can, you know, fully adjust to it.
I think so.
So which parts do you guys go to with Annie?
So actually the terrace is one of my favourite parts of all of this, and we usually do sort of dinner tables out here for about 20 people. And as I say, we'll gather we'll think of a topic. So it could be, you know, climate change. What do we want to get out of COP28? Get the key experts around, start brainstorming, and try and think of specific things we can do, bringing together, you know, Kenyan government, civil society, diplomatic community, media. Hosted sort of quite a lot of stuff here during the elections to discuss what was going on, how could we support a peaceful process, and that sort of thing. So the terrace over its, you know, since the 1920s, I suspect has seen many parties, but in my case also a lot of hard work.
Thank you for the work you keep doing.
Thank you.
You seem to be intentional about women and girl child.
Yeah.
Is this something that has just come up? And if it's been there before, what drives you to, you know, to incline yourself in that sort of direction?
So I've always been a huge supporter of equality. I think our world will be at its best when we're 50% male, 50% female.
Yeah.
I don't want to see an all-female world any more than I want to see an all-male world. And girls repeatedly have not had the resources in to have the same opportunity as boys. But actually one of the things that I worry about slightly is that with all the emphasis on the girl child, some of the boy childs are starting to feel left out. And I think in some ways we need to look again a bit at our focus to explain that this isn't about saying boys aren't important.
Yes.
This is about getting girls up to the same standard.
Exactly.
But then you go to somewhere like Garissa, and I've been lucky enough to go to many different places in Kenya, and you know there's 300 kids to one teacher. So whether you're a girl or a boy, you're not getting good education.
The ratio is not just appropriate.
Yeah. So you can have gender discussions, but actually the bigger discussion is about how to get children into school, regardless of their gender, and that's some of the things that I'm keen to promote and work on as well. But can I just point out Peterson the lion behind you?
Oh!
Don't know if you spotted Peterson. So Peterson was a gift, speaking of gifts that one gets.
Who gave you this
And
gift?
he was gifted to the residents, the High Commission, not to me, by Beatrice Karanja, who's the daughter of Kenya's first High Commissioner to the UK. Back in 1963.
Wow.
So this lion sort of symbolises the relationship between the two of us.
It is beautiful.
Our countries, yeah.
Yeah, and I can imagine this sort of gift.
Yeah.
It's massive.
It is.
People have put all their thoughts and resources into it.
Yeah.
Are there times when you feel like, you know, being a public figure makes people be too generous towards you?
Thankfully, I think most people are aware that in the British government we have very strict gift policies, so
you mentioned
there's
that.
no point in giving me anything too generous because I'll have to give it back to you.
I can imagine.
But I love this huge lawn that we've got here because we hosted the Queens Jubilee event last year and had 2,000 people on this lawn under big tents, and it's amazing the sheer number of people. The grass suffers quite a bit when you've had, as we did last week with the coronation, but it's got so much potential. Many people have come here and networked and shared ideas, I hope, gone away to make the world a better place, possibly with slightly fuller bellies than they were before.
Thank you, and lots of drinks as well. I'm among those people.
Yeah.
Now it's...
Although actually I don't particularly drink. I'll have a nice glass of wine a couple of times a week with dinners, but...
Is it white or red?
I tend to be more white if I'm having something.
Yeah.
But
I like white too.
Yeah. But I really like chocolate, so I'm like, if I'm going to have empty, pointless calories, I'd rather do it with chocolate than with alcohol.
Brown or white chocolate?
Dark.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I've had to wean myself on it because I really love like dairy milk and all the cheap sugary chocolate. So I've had to like try and convince myself that I like dark chocolate best.
Let me get to hear your sentiments, very personal sentiments, nothing to do with your, your office or the role that you hold. Out of all the countries, out of all the works that you've done, which country still strikes you as closer to achieving? There are countries that you've seen, especially economies that are still growing, that you'll say, no, for this, they still need more than 30, 40, 50 years, not in bad faith, but I'm looking at, you'd be able to categorize, even if, for instance, Kenya is in developing countries, but how far is it before, is a developed nation or state? So which of these countries strike you as, faster growth and perhaps, according to you personally, nothing to do with who you are or what role you play?
So that's a leading question, because of course I'm going to say Kenya.
Yeah, because you're in Kenyan soil.
Yeah, but taking Kenya out of that mix, it would genuinely be Kenya. I mean, the growth potential that Kenya has. I think the challenge for Kenya will be making sure it develops in an egalitarian fashion. So the Gini coefficient, the gap between sort of the richest and the poorest, the countries that are the most successful are the ones that got the smallest gap between the richest and the poorest. And the UK is not always great at this, but if you look at the Scandinavian countries, which consistently score best for happiness, for health, for community, for growth, they've all got sort of relatively low rates between the richest and the poorest. So Kenya, I think, has that huge potential in terms of being a developed country, and it's already got such a vibrant tech sector. Manufacturing is starting to take off, but it's still got 4.6 million people who don't have enough to eat as a result of climate change and the rains. And I know that's something that is on the president's mind and lots of other people's minds. So how do you grow a country but make sure no one gets left behind?
Yes. And I'm thinking about that because previously we spoke about the bureaucracy and the corruption. So honestly speaking, I didn't expect that you'll put Kenya as that country. Because I feel like sometimes from our conversation, there could be things that you want to do that are of big significance to the community, but then because of bureaucracy, the speed at which it rolls or it runs is not as encouraging, and sometimes you're even tempted to give up. All the claims coming in, we want a community project, a project for the people. But again, the people are saying they want this, but then the leadership is now what is bringing or rather slowing everything down. So honestly, I didn't expect that you'll put Kenya. Besides everything that is going on and that has been happening during your tenure. Where are you going to after this, Jen?
I'm not allowed to say yet, so we've only just asked the host government for permission. But it's a country that I think will be even more challenging to work in than Kenya, for good and bad. But just coming back to Kenya, one of the when I first arrived, people said, look, Kenyans start planning elections the minute the previous election has finished.
Did you feel that?
And I thought, what complete nonsense.
Lie.
And then, as soon as this election was through, everyone was like, well, for 2027, and we also need to look at 2032. And I found myself saying the same thing. But one of the things that, I would love to see in that context, actually, is getting those fundamentals in the right place for 27. So, the discussions going on now about the formation of the IBC and the commissioners, absolutely central for getting Kenya on that path. Establishing the leader of the opposition, and this is one thing where I think Kenya needs to do a big step up into the big league, as it were, and it's perfectly capable of doing so. But if you don't have an opposition holding a government to account, no matter how good that government may or may not be, after a while it gets sluggish, it starts to do things that maybe it shouldn't. You see it the world over. But if you have an opposition holding it to account, so the greatest legacy actually that could happen before 27 is that you've got a strong opposition that is holding the government to account. And I would love to see that. And campaign financing. Because one of the things that really strikes me about Kenya is how expensive it is to become elected. So you need to have money or access to money to get elected. But if you're transparent about those finances, and if the relationship between people and government is different, then I think that will really help getting a more diverse field of MPs and senators. And it will also enable, frankly, to break that cycle with corruption. Because if you owe a lot of money when you're elected, you've got to find a way of paying that back.
Yes, and you've got to find a way of retaining, status quo.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your siblings. You give me a little bit sneak peek into your family. Tell me, besides mom and dad, and how are they? Are they still alive? What do they say about you keeping on, doing stuff across the globe? And what about your siblings as well? Fill me into that.
So my parents are 82 and 83. They're both very fit and healthy. In fact, my mum came here last year.
Wow.
And it was her first trip outside sort of Europe. I'd taken her to Cuba once and America once, but it was her first sort of trip to anywhere like this. And she did it by herself at then 81. Which was phenomenal, and she absolutely fell in love with Kenya. But my dad was a bit too nervous. He's never done an 8-hour plane journey, so it was actually the plane journey and going to the airport that was worrying him, not coming to Kenya. But my mum now keeps raving about Kenya. Can't you stay? When can I come back and visit?
Oh, that's so beautiful.
So it's great. And then my sister, who's a few years older, she came to visit in October, and again absolutely fell in love with Kenya, as you would do.
So is she in the same, cycle as you?
No, she's a lawyer actually. So she does family law. So really she acts on behalf of the children who often have no voice in such things. So, which parent do they want to live with? Should they be taken into foster care? Really difficult decisions that you have. So, she works even harder than I do, I think, and her job is much more emotional because you're talking about the future of children.
And you're talking about the future of countries.
Yeah, which is also a big thing, but it's kind of less personally emotional in some ways. I mean, I really want to see Kenya succeed because I think the world is a better place to see Kenya succeed, but the decisions and things that I do will only have a marginal impact on that, whereas my sister is sort of helping decide should a kid stay with their parents or not, and that's going to impact that kid for the rest of his or her life.
What has been the lowest moment for you personally in your career? Moments when you broke down and you were like, do I really have to do this? Or perhaps this is the last that I'm doing. I'm not going any further. Tell me about it, Jen.
There's been a couple of big ones, actually. The biggest was red listing. And I was really hoping not to mention red listing, but I think that was certainly my lowest moment in Kenya. And I'd said to the authorities back in London, I mean, for ages we'd sort of given information about, why Kenya didn't need to go on the red list. And then it reached a point actually where the science was showing that from a UK government's perspective, we weren't going to be able to hold off for any longer. So I said to my headquarters, 2 things. One, I need some scientists to have a video call with Kenyan scientists to explain this. And secondly, don't do it over Easter, because everybody's exhausted. And yeah, it's hard to think back 3 years now about how scared people were, how exhausted people were. 2 years in the case of red listing, and London said, yes, yes, of course, Jane, of course, and then didn't give me scientists and made the announcement on Good Friday. I'm like, oh.
You were
I was so frustrated, and then on Saturday the Kenyan government sort of got together and plotted all the nasty things they could do to the UK in revenge for going on red listing. And it was a 7 o'clock curfew at that time, and I sat on the sofa by myself. This was Saturday night of Easter. I was on my own, and I just thought, I don't know if I can do this anymore, because I completely understood the Kenyan government's reaction, and I think I would probably have done the same. And to be honest, when a host government is horrible to you or does things that you don't like, it's your job to suck it up and deal with it. And that's what you do, and that's how you develop a tough skin. But when it's your own side causing the problems, that bit I really struggled with, and I did come within that short of handing in my notice to the government at that point.
Are there days for you when you wake up and you don't feel like going to the office?
No, and actually I do quite a bit of working from home, which is helpful because a lot of people come here to the residence. But no, thankfully I've not had any of those days. So even with the red listing...
Then what keeps you going?
But I think just unbridled optimism with a good dose of realism. So I'm always like, right, we can reach the moon, but do you know what? If we only hit the top of the garden, that's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah.
That's a really good mantra to go with.
So this So this is our vegetable garden, and I was completely stitched up by my predecessor, Nick Haley. So before he left, he did a gardening program, and he talked about how he would come and tend the plants here and how much he loved this garden and how he really hoped that I would keep it on. And then he sent me the clip going, I've got you, you've got to keep the garden going now. And I am not a gardener. I can barely keep my spider plant alive.
I can see that. But you've tried.
I have a great team.
You're doing great.
I have a great team. And actually one of the reasons why this isn't flourishing as much as it needs to be is we've got a little bit of a sewage leak.
Oh, I see.
So my personal kitchen smells of sewage constantly.
Sorry.
So we actually need to dig this whole thing up and
but
sort
I like
out the
the way
sewage
the
pipes.
spinach is looking.
Yeah,
it looks
spinach
really
is looking good.
Yeah. Only thing I can see, some are dying off the other end.
Yeah.
And this is yet to be planted, right?
Yes.
Or did anything die from here?
I don't pay that close attention. As I say, I don't do growing or cooking. I do eating.
You're so lucky.
I know. But actually, being in Kenya has really connected me more to the weather and the seasons and the earth than I ever thought possible. So in the UK, living in London, you just go to Sainsbury's and buy your food. And here I now find myself having conversations about weather patterns and growing conditions and all sorts of things that actually I'm becoming really interested in.
Besides the lovely weather that Kenya has, do you also feel like working in an African country and in the Middle East has, toughened you up and, increased your level of resilience somewhat? Yeah.
I think... I've had a very privileged life in many ways, so even though there have been some tough bits that definitely toughened me up, I get to live in a house like this and I don't have to worry about the price of hunger. So I think, there's a resilience in dealing with tricky issues that I've grown very good at, but I've actually never had to face what a lot of people in the world face, which is the resilience you need of consoling your child when you don't have enough food to feed it. And that I think I would be very bad at.
What do you miss doing if you aren't doing this?
I've got a month in London between this job and my next job. I'm really looking forward to seeing my friends who are based there, going to the theatre, going to a concert or two. Although I know you've got sort of great artists here. We've had Ghetto Classics at the Residence a few times. And I think the cellist Yo-Yo Ma is coming in early June, who I'm a big fan of. Although I haven't got tickets, so, never mind. Even
if you want, you can get,
But I wouldn't ask. That's I kind of think when you're an ambassador, you need to not abuse your power.
I know. Well, that is being humble.
Yeah. I think it's
Are you a fan of football?
It's about role modelling.
Oh yeah,
Actually, I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah.
Football, not particularly, because my home team is called Doncaster Rovers, who no
How are
one has
they
ever heard of. No one's
Yes.
ever heard of them. That's how well they're doing. But I had a boyfriend who is a huge Tottenham Hotspur fan. So he was the one who didn't want to be Mr. Ambassador. So at that point, I did kind of start supporting Arsenal a little
So
bit.
you are getting some tickets here and there to go watch.
I'm
asking you because the season is coming to an end, and it will come to an end when you're in London.
Yeah,
so
I-
you might want to catch, the
I'm
last few
working
matches.
while I'm in London, so I don't think I'll have much time for football. But
Thank you so much for your time.
no, thank you. It's been great.
And I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Perhaps when I drop by to your country.
Yes, in London or in the next place, which I'll tell you about when I'm able
Thank
to.
you.
Thank
All
you
right.
very much. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed Jane Marriott's story. Many thanks for watching Globe Traktion. Make sure you join us again every Saturday and next Saturday at 8:30 p.m. Kenyan time only on KTN News. And if you have a story you'd like to share with us, don't hesitate. Give us a write to Globe Traktion at